Day number 8.
Here we
Welcome
are.
back.
Good to be with
Jason, how you doing? What have you been up to?
you. Ben, it's been a big 24 hours. I don't know what came over me. Last night, I made bread for the first time in my life.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's just not with a bread maker or anything like that. It was just my wife made a great dinner that I just think needed some like yummy bread with it. And I don't know, it's just the spirit of the times, it's just,
Right. You're
it's,
at home.
I think it's like survival instinct. We're kind of like, I'm home. And I made some bread and it was delightful. And then this morning I went for a jog for the first time in a long time.
Okay. Fresh air.
Yeah. A lot of social distancing. I found some paths where nobody was. That was really good. And then I don't know if you've seen this thing going on about whipped coffee. Have you seen this?
Whipped coffee? No.
Yeah. So this is a big thing that people are doing.
This is good. You're going to educate me and then I can try it.
Yeah. They're putting them being the kids and others, instant coffee, like an instant coffee pack. I did a Starbucks Via. Some people do like the Nescafe or whatever. And then just a scoop of sugar, like a teaspoon. So instant, and then a little bit of boiling water, like 2 teaspoons. And then you just whip it like crazy. So I started doing it by hand first. And then eventually I was like, this doesn't work. So I used a hand mixer. And then it gets like all like kind of whipping cream. And so you got this coffee sweet. And then I poured it over ice and milk. And it was amazing.
So it's just like instant coffee. It's sugar. And it's a little bit of boiling water.
Yeah, and then you whip it, and it gets like frothy and bigger. It starts really small, and it gets frothy, and peaks like the kind of peaks you're looking for in whipping cream. And it was amazing. So, I mean, just since we last chatted, lots happened.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow. Well,
you know what it is? It's Sabbath, man. That's what we're talking about. I've just been doing sort of like, I'm just doing like the kind of things with the family, and we watched church online this morning, and it's been great.
Too good. Okay, so, and where are we at in Mark?
Okay, we're in Mark chapter 3. We're going to focus in on verses 13 to 19 today. And there's a little bit that happens between what we last talked about and that. So I'm wondering if you could fill us in narratively what's been going on.
Yes.
And then we can look at the specific passage together.
So we've already mentioned Jesus healing people, teaching, he's traveling around a little bit, and crowds are gathering more and more and more. So it gets to the point where so many people are gathering. He's going down to the lake to teach. And there's so many people, they actually have to get a small boat for him to sit a little bit away from the shore to teach off the boat. And then it says Jesus goes up to the mountain. He goes up on a mountainside, and it says he called people to himself. And, he called, and this is the scene that we're setting up is he's appointing the 12 disciples, apostles, as they're known. And it says he goes up the mountain and he appoints 12 men.
Yeah. And it makes sense why there's a crowd gathering, because we just talked about this before. Like he healed somebody on the Sabbath. And so news is spreading in this area. And it's not a massive area. So news is spreading that Jesus is healing people. So people are bringing their sick, people who are oppressed by evil spirits. They're coming to Jesus because they know that it seems as if he's got spiritual authority to heal them. And so a lot is going on. And so he withdraws from them. And then it's like it seems as if there's a crowd of followers. And then he actually picks 12 of them out and says, you guys come with me. And this is a really significant moment for a number of reasons. One is this is Jesus. We've talked about him as the king, bringing his new kingdom, picking his team, as it were. You know what I mean? Like picking the people that he wants to invite in to this work. And it's pretty surprising. Like we can read the people that he picks. So verse 16 to 19 list them. It says, these are the 12 he chose. Simon, who he named Peter, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, but Jesus nicknamed them Sons of Thunder. Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, which is a name that I think is going to make a comeback. Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus. Is that how you pronounce that? Thaddeus?
That looks like it. Yeah, Thaddeus.
Is it a soft H? Is it Thaddeus or Thaddeus?
I think at this point, when the name makes a comeback, we'll know. When that one makes a comeback. Both will.
Simon the Zealot and Judas Iscariot, who later betrayed him. So these are the list of these people. And I think we've said this once before, but I think it's worth noting. The people that Jesus picks to be the champions, ambassadors, witnesses, and leaders of this new kingdom movement of love and justice and care for the oppressed and good news are not the type of people that we would expect.
Yeah, it's when you go through the list, you're looking at fishermen, you're looking at a tax collector, another Simon. He's called Simon the Zealot, which means he's probably very much an activist and even a militant type of activist. And then Judas Iscariot, who later betrays him. So there's this whole range of people who you wouldn't expect. None of them. It doesn't say any of them. Oh, the Sadducee, the Pharisee, the teacher of the law, who are the religious leaders of the day. It's these normal young people.
Yeah, and that gives hope for me and you, for everyone listening, that the types of people that Jesus invites, it's not what we might expect, that it's a broad invitation that we're invited into. But the fact that he chooses 12 is pretty significant. And I think that significance would kind of be lost on us. But imagine how many provinces and territories in Canada. There's 10 provinces and 3 territories.
I was going to say, I wish you hadn't put me on the spot like that. I think it's 10 provinces.
It's 10 provinces and 3 territories. And so we don't have, like, as Canadians, we don't connect as much with those numbers. But imagine it'd be like him saying, I'm picking 13. If all of a sudden, like, that meant a lot to us. What I mean to say is, for the Jewish listeners at the time, they're very familiar with this idea of the 12 tribes of Israel. That so much of their story as a nation was connected to these 12 tribes. So the number 12 was significant. It really represented their whole country when it was whole and new. And what had happened years before Jesus came is that a number of those tribes had been, like, taken over or, like, broken apart, and there's fractures. And so this is almost this statement of, like, restoration of the new kingdom. And so for some people listening, they're like, man, is he going to start, like, a political movement? But what we discover is that Jesus is actually trying to do something that's not just for Israel, but for the whole world, the whole new movement. It's not about a country's borders, but about a new kingdom movement for all people. So that's what's significant about that number 12.
And so then he takes the 12, and there's 3 things that it says that he does. It says in verse 14, he appointed 12 that they might be with him, that he might send them out to preach, and to have authority to drive out demons. And so let's just unpack those 3 things. That, be with him, send him out to preach, to spread the message, and to have authority to drive out demons.
Yeah, and if I could just give, like, our summary statement, it's this. It's that for all of us, for anyone who wants to follow Jesus and join him in this mission of bringing love and goodness and hope to the world, there's 3 things, at least in this text, that is saying that we're invited to do. First is to be with him. Second is to preach or share or announce the good news. And the third is to go in the authority that he sends us with. And so let's, be with him, announce the good news, and go in the authority he sends us with. Yeah. And so to be with him, this first thing, I love how simple this is. He picked 12 people to accompany him, like, to walk with him, to be with him.
And I think that had to do with meals, that had to do with walking, like you said. It has to do with listening to his teaching, those late night conversations, long chats after a long day. And I think in many ways that phrase really hits home for me, because I'm like, oh, I want to be someone who's just sits with them. I be with Jesus. I pray, I listen, I rest in silence and solitude, and that, which isn't always easy for me, but
yeah, I think there's 2 maybe extremes we can take. Some people see sometimes we might think following Jesus is just about the things we do, and I think that misses out on the reality that before we're asked to do anything or behave a certain way, we're invited to come alongside of him and be with him. The other extreme would be, following Jesus is just about this, like, internal emotional connection to God, but has nothing to do with lifestyle. But what we see here is an integration of both. So first, there's the invitation for followers of Jesus to be with him, to walk with him, to journey with him. And then second is to announce, to preach the message. What's the wording here? It says that he would send them out to preach. And so the idea and what we see happening is these disciples went around village to village in pairs and started telling them the good news. Repent, believe the good news. The king has arrived. Like, turn from your ways, come and follow this new way of living. And as followers of Jesus today, and it might sound different or look different, but the message is still the same and the invitation is the same, to use our words and our life to articulate the good news of the message.
And the second thing he says, or the third thing he says, is to have authority to drive out demons. The idea of passing on authority is one that in many in Canada, I think we get in many different examples, and I think around the world people get it. It's like, oh, you have the authority if it's given to you by the right people. You have, there's influence you can have personally and relationally, but there's also like positional authority and
Yeah.
like that can be given to you.
Well, when you were out of town, you gave me permission to go into your home.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone's allowed to walk in and out of your house. That's not
Mm-hmm.
allowed. But you have the authority over your home. And you
Yeah.
said, Jay, here's the keys. You can use it. And
Mm-hmm.
what's happening here is Jesus is, up until this point, modeling massive spiritual authority. I mean, he can heal the sick, he can
Right.
cast out demons. He's got authority, like his words, like we're going to see him like calm storms, and like it's just incredible
Mm-hmm.
things that happen with his authority. And then in this text, what's amazing, he's saying that people who I choose to follow me, I'm giving them my authority. And I think there's lots we could say about this, and I know that maybe time is running out for this conversation today, but I think as followers of Jesus, we often underestimate the authority that we have to go into sometimes scary places, to do brave things, knowing that we have the authority of a living God behind us, not for us to wield, to control. He's already addressed that earlier. Like, he doesn't want this to be taken advantage of, but to be used, that authority, to bring love and hope and healing to others.
Mm-hmm. And so as we go about our days, maybe some questions to consider is maybe some questions along the lines of, especially in this era of social distancing, how are you coming close spiritually to God? How are you trying to be with him? That's one question.
Yeah. And then maybe another question that you could start, or a thing you could do as an exercise, is begin to say, hey, what else do we know about being a follower of Jesus? So in this text, we see 3 things, like be with him, share the good news, preach, and then like go in the authority that he has even over darkness. But over the book of Mark, I think we're going to see this list grow and be rounded out and get more texture and clarity. And so it would be worth having a little note along the way. Say, what does it mean to follow Jesus according to Mark?
Yeah, I love that. All right.
Sweet. Talk to you later.